All right, let's dive into a fun little puzzle. Imagine you've got a box of cookies and a bunch of kids. Some kids are pretty easy to please, but others, well, they want a bigger cookie. So how do you hand them out to make the most kids happy? It seems simple, right? But it's got a surprisingly clever solution, and today we're going to break it all down. So here's the core challenge. You've got a limited supply of cookies, and every kid has, let's say, a minimum expectation. Now, your goal isn't to make everyone happy, because hey, that might be impossible. It's all about maximizing the number of happy kids. And to pull that off, you're going to need the right strategy. To get started, we really only need 2 bits of info. For each kid, we need to know their greed factor, which we'll call G. That's just the smallest cookie they'll be happy with. And then, for the cookies, we just need their sizes, which we'll call S. Simple enough, right? And that brings us to the main objective. It's not about giving out the biggest cookies or even about satisfying the pickiest kid in the group. Nope. The only thing that matters is getting that final count of happy kids as high as possible. That is our win condition. So, what's the catch? Well, imagine you just walk in with a random pile of cookies and see a jumble of kids. If you don't have a plan, things can get pretty messy. And your first attempt, well, it probably won't be the best one. Let's take a look at this first scenario. We've got 3 kids with greed factors of 1, 2, and 3. And we have 2 cookies, both of them are size 1. So, looking at this, how many kids can we actually satisfy? Well, even though you have 2 cookies, you can only make one child happy, the one whose greed factor is 1. You can give them one of the cookies, and they're totally content. But that other cookie, also size 1, is just too small for the other 2 kids. So, yeah, just winging it isn't gonna cut it. Okay, so clearly randomly handing out cookies is a bust. There has to be a smarter way, a core strategy that's gonna guarantee the best possible outcome every single time. And guess what? There is. So let's think for a second. What's the most logical first step here? If you want to make the maximum number of children happy, who should you focus on first? The pickiest kids or the ones who are easiest to please? And this right here, this is the aha moment. The best strategy is to give the smallest available cookies to the children who are the easiest to please. See, by satisfying the least greedy kids first, we save our bigger, more valuable cookies for the kids who actually need them. It is all about smart prioritization. You know, this powerful strategy actually has a name in computer science. It's called a greedy algorithm. It's an approach where you just make the best-looking choice at every single step. And for certain problems, like this one, that series of small optimal choices actually leads you to the best overall solution. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so we've got the theory down. But how do we actually do this? How do we implement this greedy strategy? Well, we're going to use a really simple but powerful method called the 2-pointer technique. It all breaks down into 3 easy steps. First, we sort both lists. This is key. It creates order out of that chaos we saw earlier. We'll sort the kids by their greed and the cookies by their size. Then, we'll use 2 pointers to walk through both lists at the same time and make our matches. All right, enough talk. Let's put this whole thing into practice with a new example. I think walking through it step by step is going to make the whole process crystal clear. Okay, check out our new scenario. We have 2 kids with greed factors of 1 and 2, and 3 cookies of sizes 1, 2, and 3. And notice the most important part. Both of these lists are now sorted from smallest to largest. This is that critical first step. Now, let's bring in our 2 pointers. We'll call them I and J. Pointer I is going to start on our first child. You know, the one with the smallest greed factor. And pointer J will start on our first and smallest cookie. So our first check is super simple. Is the cookie at pointer J big enough for the child at pointer I? In this case, is a cookie of size 1 greater than or equal to a greed factor of 1? Yep, it absolutely is. And because it's a match, we can go ahead and assign that cookie. That child is now happy. So what happens next? We advance both pointers. We move on to the next child, and we move on to the next available cookie. And here's where our pointers have landed. Pointer I is now on the second child, who has a greed factor of 2, and pointer J is on the second cookie, which has a size of 2. So you know what that means. Time for our next comparison. Once again, we ask the question, is the cookie of size 2 big enough for the kid with a greed factor of 2? And yes, another perfect match. So that second child is now content, and we move both pointers forward again.
And at this point, we've run out of children to check, which means our job is done. We successfully satisfied 2 kids, which is the absolute maximum possible. We found our optimal solution.
So let's just zoom out for a second and really understand the big picture here. Why is this greedy, step-by-step approach actually guaranteed to give us the best answer every time? Well, it really boils down to 3 key things. First, sorting is everything. It lets us make our decisions in a logical, orderly way. Second, that greedy choice, giving the smallest cookie to the least greedy kid, is optimal because it saves our best resources, the big cookies, for the kids who truly need them. And finally, that 2-pointer technique is just a fantastically efficient way to make these comparisons without ever having to backtrack. And that leaves us with a final question to kind of chew on. This greedy approach worked perfectly for cookies, but it doesn't work for every problem out there. So where else, in life or maybe in other puzzles, might making the best local choice at each step lead you to the best overall result? It's a really powerful way of thinking and a great